Deck the halls with Canada's most affordable unlimited data plans from Freedom Mobile. And since unlimited data starts at just $45 a month, don't just deck the halls. Deck the kitchen, deck the doggy door, deck it all. Details at freedommobile.ca. Conditions apply.
This is the John Oakley Show podcast. Merritt Stiles is the NDP's education critic, and she has joined the Oakley Show this afternoon to give us her perspective. Merritt, always a pleasure. Good afternoon.
Hi, it's great to be here again.
So tell me, Merritt, what do you make of Minister Lecce's offer of financial assistance to parents facing increased costs?
Well, I got to tell you, I was a bit surprised that the minister didn't come in and actually address how we get our kids to stay in school. How do we keep our kids in classrooms? And I wish he'd spent as much time thinking about how he was going to, reverse some of these cuts and get us back to the table and keep our kids in classrooms rather than coming up with this scheme.
Well, I guess, one might say, okay, depending on how you perceive this from where you stand, he can say, well, if, the unions would just put some water in their wine, and that would keep the kids in school, never mind these rotating strikes or job actions, that would maintain the schooling for the children. I mean, you can see it either way, I suppose, and that would be his response. And what would you say to that? The unions, he said, are intransigent.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we've heard, and we've heard even from mediators, is that this government hasn't budged in terms of these cuts. Look, what parents, and I'm hearing from, a lot of Ontarians, students, parents, what we've seen already in our classrooms, and the idea that that's only going to get worse with this government's plan for cuts is not something that Ontarians want to see happen. I think that's pretty much across the board. So when Ontarians, I think, right now are standing pretty solidly with the education workers. The government might be trying to influence that in some way, but I think what people want to see is they want to see their kids in classrooms. They want to see them with smaller class sizes. They want to see them with the courses that they had before, not the ones that have been cut. And they want to make sure that, full-day kindergarten stays in place, for example.
Well, all right, but I can offer that there are several people who have called this program already before you got here saying, the government should stand firm. The teachers are always the ones who are rocking the boat, and they're creating this problem all too frequently. Like these strike things or job actions and disruptions happen, every other year, it seems, or every 3 years when the contracts lapse. People are growing fed up with it. Do you think maybe the unions are overplaying their hand?
I think that while I can see how some people have felt that way, I got to tell you that I think in this case we are dealing with a really different scene. What we're experiencing already and the chaos that we experienced in a lot of the classrooms in September is just a taste of what's coming, and that's, I think, what's really gotten under the skin of a lot of Ontario families who are looking at whose kids are in school now or who are looking at their kids coming into the school system. We may, people may have lots of different opinions about budget issues and choices, but they don't want to see our kids bear the cost. And that's what's happening right now. And so I think that what makes this strike and these work actions a little different is that people really are unhappy with the direction the government's taking in their cuts. And what the unions have said from day one, and what we've been saying too, actually, is, just reverse those cuts, come back to the table and have a conversation. That's where we need to be right now.
Again, I'd offer as a counterpoint, again, only because I'm hearing it quite often, a lot of parents are put off by the quality of education or lack thereof, and they put that on the teacher. So, how is that on the government?
Well, that's only going to get worse. There's no way that education improves with larger class sizes. And there's no way that education improves when kids have fewer choices.
Well, how do you know, though, empirically? Is there data to support what you're saying here now? If it's 25 rather than 28 or 22, is there a perceptible change in the quality of outcomes?
Yeah, so when you talk about class size averages, it's not going to be 25. It's going to be more like it's already at 38, 40 in a lot of our core courses right now.
On average, though?
Yeah, so that's true, and the
some classes have 16 though, Merritt. Some classes have 16.
You have specific classes where you need to keep those numbers low because you have kids with learning issues, or you have labs or something where you have to keep the numbers small. And so that's exactly right. That's what happens. You have, in order to keep those smaller classes, you end up seeing huge increases in core courses, and that is a problem. That means that, and what I hear from students and what I also hear from teachers, frankly, is that it's the kids, when they get into those big class sizes, it's the kids who are struggling. And we know that we have a lot of kids struggling in our school system with anxiety, with learning issues. And how do you connect with that kid when you're talking about 38, 40 kids in a class? It becomes increasingly difficult, and it's those kids that are going to slip through the cracks. And we know it, and we've seen it through studies and research around the world. Smaller class sizes have better outcomes for students.
So you can verify that with empirical evidence that, even a class size average, if it shifts by a couple, 3 students, I mean, in the primary grades, we're only talking of an average of a half a student increase?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest increase so far is going to be definitely in the high school years, and that's what we've seen so far, and it's going to get worse every year. What we saw this past fall, was just the beginning. It's going to get worse. So we have classrooms now where and I've heard many reports across the province of classrooms where they're having trouble fitting enough desks in the room. This is not sustainable, and it's only going to get worse. And look, I mean, I tell you also, it breaks my heart when I see kids losing some of the courses that they care about because, look, we want to keep kids in school. We want to keep them in school. We want to keep them engaged. And when you're in the high school years in particular, you need maybe just that one course that you love, that one teacher who means something, who inspires you. That's what keeps you in school, and it keeps you from dropping out. And we know if we can keep kids in school, if we can graduate more students, if we can have better learning outcomes, it's good for the economy. It's good for our health later on in life. So, this is really critical. It's going to affect all of us if our education suffers.
Well, I guess, but you mentioned sustainability, and I just wonder, in that model, what is in fact practical to sustain? Every school would like a 50-piece marching band or a drama class, but I mean, how practical is that? Don't you consider that there have to be some lines drawn here, and it's, for the unions to negotiate as much as for the government to somehow fulfill the requirements, the demands of the union? I mean, don't the unions have to put some water in their wine too?
I think, again, I think the big issue for what unions are saying, and I think also, to be fair, what a lot of us are concerned about as families is the quality of education system. And we don't have a ton of frills, right? We want to improve education, not see it reverse. We could do better. It wasn't rainbows and unicorns under the Liberals either. They actually made, some big missteps in education. We can do better than this. But what we have to realize is that a big part of education is having the supports that students need, right? Especially those students who are struggling. And we've seen a reduction in social workers and guidance counselors and school psychologists. These are not frills. These are necessities these days, right?
Yeah, and how's that impacting outcomes? I mean, are we all better served? By the way, when you said that, I'm gobsmacked that the Liberals actually fell short as well. They more than doubled the budget. They increased teachers in a province by 14,000, even though enrollment had dropped by over 100,000. So, I mean, where are we going with this?
Well, I mean, again, it's differences of, I think, that you can throw a lot of Band-Aids on a problem, and maybe that's what they did. We should be rethinking a little bit about how we fund education. Certainly, we should be thinking about that, and there's a lot that could be done better.
Well, could we find efficiencies in the system?
I would say that we have a pretty lean system, but what we need to do is we need to think about funding our students based on need, and not just the number of bums in seats. And that's kind of basically where things have ended up right now. And we need to change that. But in the meantime, the idea that we are going to have fewer caring adults in our schools, fewer professionals, that is a big part of the school system, right, is the actual pieces. And if the government wants to replace, that kind of face-to-face learning with mandatory e-learning, I think there's no research that shows that that's going to have successful outcomes. In fact, kids have a very high dropout rate.
Well, by the same token, though, Merritt, by the same token, do we know it won't? I had a caller call in a few moments ago. He says, he was gearing up to teach his own kid math. He went online, and on YouTube, you've got PhDs who are communicators, and they're helping math studies, facilitate math studies. He was overly impressed, and he thinks that's a better option than maybe having some stiff teacher, and he didn't use that word, I did, but, in the classroom actually teaching math. He was bullish on that. So he's not decrying the and by the way, it's gone down from 4 mandatory classes or courses being taught before you graduate high school to 2. So that's, again, the government has watered things down. Let me ask you finally, though, Merritt, I know we've talked about this in the past. So the teachers are standing firm on this point of 2% increase in compensation. Why don't they forgo that if they're that interested in the kids and the quality of the education and have those resources reallocated back into the classroom? Then that would say that they're sincere in their first priority being the quality of education and the welfare of kids.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not at the bargaining table, but what I've heard them say over and over again is that they would like to see the government take the first step, reverse the cuts, and then let's go. They're willing to talk about compensation that way. So I think the door is open to those conversations. They're going to make those decisions, not me. But I certainly think that at the end of the day, the real sticking point, and I'll tell you, the reason why so many people are backing the teachers right now, and why the government I think is losing a lot of support here, is because it's about cuts to our classrooms, and nobody wants to see that. And so I think for a lot of people, education workers are seen to be the folks who are fighting to preserve our public education system.
All right. Well, that's the perspective from the NDP's education critic, Merritt Stiles. Always appreciate your time here on this show. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the John Oakley Show podcast. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe for free at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your on-demand audio.